Hello and welcome to Today in History. My name is Sotonye Afiesimama, and I am here to take you on a journey through history, through recorded history. Let's start with the year 618. In this year, on this day, we had the coronation of the Chinese governor Li Yuan as Emperor Gaozu of Tang of China, initiating 3 centuries of the Tang Dynasty's rule over China. So there is Li Yuan as Emperor Gaozu of Tang of China. We move on to the year 656, 48 years later, and we encounter Ali ibn Abu Talib. He was elected the 4th Caliph of the Rashidun Caliphate. He was an uncle of the Islamic Prophet Muhammad, who he brought to live with him after the death of his parents and grandfather. Abu Talib is remembered as a gifted poet, and many poetic verses in support of Muhammad are attributed to him. 1239 on this day, it's Edward I's birthday. He's also known as Edward Longshanks and the Hammer of the Scots. He was King of England from 1272 to 1307. Before his accession to the throne, he was commonly referred to as the Lord Edward. He was the first son of Henry III. In 1397, the Union of Kalmar was established on this day between Denmark, Sweden, and Norway. These countries are also known as Scandinavian countries today. 1597, English navigator Francis Drake. What does he do on this day? He lands on the coast of California at, would you guess? Drake's Bay. That's a clue right there. He names it New Albion. 1579, Francis Drake discovers Drake's Bay. We move on to the year 1631. That was the year and the day, which was today, that the foundation stones of this beautiful structure was laid. This was built in honor of Taj Mahal, who was the wife of Shah Jahan I. Shah Jahan was an emperor of India. So he built this to honor his late wife who died during childbirth. Such a beautiful gesture. He must have deeply, deeply loved her. We move on to 1824. On this day, in that year, the U.S. Bureau of Indian Affairs was established. In 1885, on this day, the Statue of Liberty arrives in New York City aboard French ship Isère. The Statue of Liberty, in French, La Liberté éclairant le monde, is a colossal neoclassical sculpture on Liberty Island in New York Harbor, in New York State, in the United States, of course. The copper statue, a gift from the people of France to the people of the United States, was designed by French sculptor Frédéric Auguste Bartholdi, and its metal framework was built by Gustave Eiffel. Obviously, Gustave Eiffel, as the name suggests, built the Eiffel Tower as well. The statue was dedicated on the 28th of October, 1886. The statue is a figure of Libertas, a robed Roman liberty goddess. She holds a torch above her head with her right hand, and in her left hand carries a tabula ansata, inscribed July IV, meaning 5, MDCCLXXVI, 1776. So that's the meaning, written in Roman numerals, which was the date of the US Declaration of Independence from Britain. A broken shackle and chain lie at her feet as she walks forward, commemorating the recent national abolition of slavery. After its dedication, the statue became an icon of freedom and of the United States, seen as a symbol of welcome to immigrants arriving by sea. In 1894, on this day, the first US poliomyelitis epidemic breaks out in Rutland, Vermont. We move on to the year 1919, 101 years ago on this day. This character, Barney Google, premieres. It's a cartoon strip by Billy the Beck. In 1928 on this day, Amelia Earhart leaves Newfoundland to become the first woman passenger to fly Atlantic as a passenger in a plane piloted by Wilma Stoltz. 1944, on this day, Iceland dissolves its union with Denmark and declares itself a republic. See if you can spot Denmark on the map. Iceland is pretty obvious, but you can see how far away Denmark is from Iceland, and yet they once governed them. Same with the United Kingdom, which at some point in history governed a quarter of the world's population. And look at how tiny the United Kingdom is. So you can see that power and size sometimes don't go hand in hand, Anyway, let's move on to the year 1943. On this day, June 17th, Parry Manila was born. He was born Barry Allen Pincus, and he is an American singer, songwriter, arranger, musician, producer, and actor with a career that has spanned more than 5 decades. His hit recordings include Could It Be Magic, Mandy, I Write the Songs, Can't Smile Without You, and obviously the famous Copacabana. He recorded and released 46 top 40 singles in the adult contemporary chart, including 13 that hit number 1 and 28 of which appeared within the top 10. In 1947, a man called Maxwell Perkins, full name William Maxwell Everett Perkins, was an American book editor, best remembered for discovering authors Ernest Hemingway, F. Scott Fitzgerald, Marjorie Kinnan Rawlins, and Thomas Wolfe. So that's Maxwell Perkins, American book editor, who died on this day in 1947. Pan Airways, same year, 1947, was chartered as the first worldwide passenger airline. This reminds me of the film Catch Me If You Can. If you haven't seen it, go see it. It's a fantastic film by Leonardo DiCaprio. 1958, 11 years later on this day, this book by Chinua Achebe called Things Fall Apart was published. It's considered the most widely read book in African literature. Now, a little synopsis about this book. The protagonist is called Okonkwo. Now, Okonkwo is a hard-working Igbo man. He's a farmer, he's a wrestler, he does all he can to have a comfortable life. He wants to be a man's man, and he becomes a man's man. very unlike his father, who was lazy, who was a debtor, so he borrowed and couldn't pay back. He had people after him. He had other vices, that Okonkwo didn't want to emulate as a man, a real man. And this led to a lot of friction, obviously, between him and his father. Then you also had the Europeans who had come to Africa and his village to spread their religion, Christianity. Now, this conflicted with their own traditional religion, so that there was a problem, obviously, and Okonkwo wasn't happy with the goings-on in his village and tried to resist the influence of the white man's religion. So it's a fascinating book. Then you had Mr. Brown, who was a missionary, a kind white man who had come with his religion. He tried his best to understand the Igbo culture and to blend into Igbo society. So in this day and age, over the last few weeks and few months, we've seen that tensions between blacks and whites especially have been at an all-time high because of George Floyd's death. But we shouldn't forget that not all white people are wicked. In fact, most of them are kind. Most human beings are kind. We want to believe that. So it just puts things, or should put things, in proper perspective. We should learn to love each other in spite of our race or creed. Okay, try to understand where each one is coming from, each one's point of view, each one's view, or each one's take on the world. Okay, so things fall apart. I highly recommend you read this book. It's an eye-opener. It is an eye-opener. If you want to understand African society, then read this book. All right, let's move on to 1970. Edwin Land. He was the man who patented the Polaroid camera on this day. So he invented the Polaroid camera. His patent was registered on this day in 1970. I'm going to read this quote, which you can see on your screen. The test of an invention is the power of an inventor to push it through in the face of staunch, not just opposition, but staunch indifference in society. It's very important to think about these words on your screen. So it's not about staunch opposition, which you do expect. Staunch opposition, yeah. At least people are passionate about opposing what you've put out in the world. But when people are indifferent, it's even more painful. It's almost like you're invisible. It's almost like your invention is invisible. They can't see or appreciate what you're doing. So, if you have a project that you're passionate about, just keep on keeping on. Keep on keeping on. You may have to make tweaks here and there to improve your invention, but eventually it's going to see the light of day and succeed. Okay, so don't give up. This is a very good example of not giving up. And the Polaroid camera became a household name in the 70s and 80s, became very, very, very popular because Edwin Herbert Land didn't give up. So you shouldn't give up also. Okay, so let's move on to the year 1882. That's when Igor Fyodorovich Stravinsky was born. He was a Russian composer. He was a pianist, a conductor as well. He's widely considered one of the most important and influential composers of the 20th century. On this day in 1973, Dolly Parton records her song, I Will Always Love You. Moving on to 1980, from the picture, Venus Ebony Star with 2 R's Williams, a former world number one. She is generally regarded as one of the all-time greats of women's tennis. I couldn't agree more. Happy birthday, Venus Ebony Star Williams. 1994, on this day, O.J. Simpson doesn't turn himself in on murder charges. LA police chases Ford Bronco for 1.5 hours before he eventually gives up. Now, this was seen on live TV, not just nationally in the United States, but worldwide. I saw this all the way in Nigeria, Africa. 2012 was the day that Rodney King died on this day. Rodney King was arrested for drink driving and evading arrest in 1991, but the police were a bit high-handed, you know. They were recorded by a man called George Holliday. They were recorded brutalizing Rodney King. And obviously Rodney King became famous for this police brutality and ended up writing a book which exposed the police brutality and the racism essentially by some white police officers in the United States police force. So that's Rodney King for you. Yeah, even though he had a criminal record, what the police did to him on that day was inexcusable. Let's move on now to the year 2019. So just 365 days ago, activist Joshua Wong calls on Hong Kong leader Carrie Lam to resign after leaving prison amid street protests the day before of over 2 million people. So that's Joshua Wong for you. And on that note, we end today in history. I'll see you guys again tomorrow, June 18th, for Today in History. My name once more is Otonye Afiesimama. Thanks for watching this video. Don't forget to give me a thumbs up if you like it. Subscribe so that you can get notifications of my uploads. Thanks again for watching. Have a fantastic day. Stay safe, guys. Bye-bye.